Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Icebreakers podcast. I am Matt Evers. Yes, I am sat solo tonight. Why? Well, first off, it was solo week on Dancing on Ice. I am so excited to be able to shine, to get away from that Frankie, because you know what? The show is all about me. Oh, that's right. It was also flying week.
I don't think so. Here I am.
She's just flown in from the West. Ladies and gentlemen, Frankie Seaman, yes, she is here joining me. It was solo week, but also it was flying week on Dancing on Ice, and we cannot wait to unpack this episode for you.
Welcome to the Icebreakers podcast. Fasten your seatbelts, stow your tray tables,
Boy.
Close the overhead luggage lockers. It's the Icebreakers podcast. Go.
They didn't say action. That was really good, Frankie.
Thanks. I've been practicing that all week.
She's like, can I please do the intro?
I never get to do the intro.
You do the intro on on the bonus episodes.
Oh, that's because I'm fabulous.
It's because I'm normally tired.
Okay, you do the intro and see if you can out-intro me.
Okay.
We're going to have to do loads of filler on this episode anyway, because the show, Dancing on Ice tonight, was really short. So maybe we'll do a second intro. We'll do a second of everything.
Okay, just two of everything.
Just two.
God, that's going to be boring. What kind of laugh was that?
I don't know. I can't laugh properly with my mask
If
on.
you are watching us, you will notice that Frankie has got some black lipstick on because she has done herself up like a beautiful swan. However, she's really conscious about getting this black lipstick on her teeth because she doesn't want to end up looking like she's got teeth missing.
And then I wonder if it might stain my teeth and I'll just have grey teeth for the rest of my life.
I've got a good doctor for you, though, or
great.
a dentist.
Are you going to do the intro or what?
We already did it.
What? Was it that good? I made the intro.
Well, no, the flying intro.
Life made. I did the
Don't you
intro.
remember when you flew into set?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Wow, that was only 5 minutes ago.
I've got a bird brain.
Oh, God, I think we're in for another evening of puns. But anyway, yes, welcome back to the couch, Frankie.
Thanks.
It was flying week as well as solo week, as we just recently heard.
Interesting concept on both counts.
Yes.
I feel a little bit like I haven't been watching Dancing on Ice tonight. I feel a little bit like I've been watching, well, celebs on ice and then flying through the air. And I just don't really understand where the skating went.
The skating was a little bit non-existent. We will break down every performance, well, the group performance, as well as then the flying performances as well. But we must remember this was the semifinal. And I don't know about you, Frankie, but I was expecting a lot. And I got nothing.
A little.
No, I did get something.
You
But
got a little.
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love the whole concept of Dancing on Ice where a celeb has to learn to skate with a professional partner. For me, ice skating in partnership, pair skating or ice dancing, any kind of partnership skating is supposed to highlight the strength of a man and the grace of a woman. And tonight, I somewhat felt that by splitting the teams up and making the celebs skate by themselves or even like the celebs all skate together, which was kind of a mishmash, and then doing the flying routine, which as we know can go horribly wrong. I do feel that we lost a little bit of the essence of what ice dancing is and Dancing on Ice is.
Especially in the semifinal, because this is the last time you will see somebody before the final.
Yeah.
And it's like people are still, yes, you have your favorites, but you know, there's a vast majority of the public out there who are still making up their mind of who they want to win. And what they did this week is almost take away, like you just said, the essence of what Dancing on Ice is. They took that away from us as the audience. And I'm left very confused.
I'm distraught.
Distraught. That's a good word.
Yeah, I'll say that.
But before we move on, if you are watching us, you will notice there's quite a few additions to the set. First off, I'm living my best life right now.
Not all about you.
Oh, I have to because I'm so excited about this.
You do look good. I'm going to say it now.
I'm living my best life. I mean, come on. If you've not watched Top Gun, please go watch Top Gun, either the first one or the sequel. But
you can watch
flight
both.
Suit, I mean,
you look hot, dude.
Thanks.
You look like the Maverick.
Oh, or ice.
Oh, you look like ice. Sorry, you look like ice.
Icebreakers.
Obviously. Oh, let's take that again. That was too good to miss.
No, it was perfect. I love how she's like into this. Let's take that again because I didn't sound very smart.
How rude. I have a bird brain.
And if you are watching us, you will notice that Frankie is dressed like a swan.
Wait a minute. You just gave yourself the biggest intro ever. Like, I am living my best life. I look like the Iceman from Top Gun. I look amazing. Literally, you were like licking the ice off yourself. And Frankie looks like a swan.
Well, then here's the mic. Go.
Well, I look graceful and elegant, and I got a few feathers.
Oh, you look amazing, actually. And I have to say, the comments we get from the fans of this show love your styling. They do. They love your outfits. Flap, flap. Remember, this is a podcast. Not everybody watches.
I know, but I'm making sure that when people do watch, they can see my arms flapping.
There you go.
My chicken wings, my chicken breasts, and my chicken legs.
But the rest of the set is sort of dotted and decorated with birds of all kinds of feathers. But most importantly, we have received the Podcast of the Year awards.
Look at these beautiful, gorgeous trophies that we've been given with our names on. Icebreakers Best Podcast of 2024 presented to Matt Evers. Glass, no less. There's one for me as well.
It's beautiful. We do have to thank two of our super fans for coming into the studio today and awarding us with those.
Yeah, Beryl and Lou popped by completely by surprise, had no idea they were coming, surprised us on set, and we're like, we, as representatives of the great British public / your fans, wanted to present you with the Best Podcast of 2024 award. I nearly fainted.
So cute. So
adorable.
Cute.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Ashley's back.
Ashley is back.
Welcome back, Ashley. We heard you had a little accident, but you look great tonight, so hopefully you've made a full and speedy recovery.
And it was nice. I kind of felt like his energy was renewed a little bit. I don't know if he watched Johnny on the panel the past couple of weeks, but, you know, I just felt like Ashley was really on the mark tonight with pretty much all of his critiques.
Well, we can tell he's been watching the show and he's been taking notes, so he was ready to jump straight back into that seat. So sorry, Johnny, you've been replaced.
So, and as a new feature to Dancing on Ice this week, the solo skate, which really was kind of like a celebrity group number, if we put it at that, that had tiny little, maybe 10 to 15 seconds of solo moments of each of these celebs.
They just kind of stepped out and did a little trick and a little bit of, they just showed off their basic solo skating skills, didn't they? But they did skate together as a whole. But I think before we get into that, we should talk about the opening number.
Yes.
Your favorite track.
Kygo's remix to Whitney Houston's Higher Love. And I actually have a little bit of backstory to this music.
Go.
I'm such a fan of Kygo. So basically, if you're not familiar with his music, he's a DJ and he does, yes, original sort of like music and orchestration, but he also has made a very strong name for himself with remixing popular tracks. And what he did was, back in the, I want to say late 80s, Whitney Houston was in Japan. And she, on a whim, sang "Higher Love," which was originally a Steve Winwood track. And she
You're like an almanac of music right now.
I'm obsessed with this song.
I'm sitting here just listening and absorbing and learning.
So basically, it was recorded by the guy that worked the sound desk. However, she never recorded it.
Okay.
Right? Like it wasn't on
Oh,
any
so
of
he
her...
just on the download recorded it because here's Whitney Houston singing this great song. Let's go.
And also because, you know, it was... I think she had rehearsed it. And so he knew what was, you know, how good it was. Anyway, she sang it for this Japanese audience. And then it disappeared. Obviously, you know, like her career continued for 20 some odd years.
And this is before the days of cell phones, so nobody had recorded it. Yeah, there's no social media. Got it.
And then there were rumors about when Kygo was looking for his next biggest track, which would have been 2 years ago. There were rumors that he's found this like hidden recording of Whitney Houston singing Steve Winwood's "Higher Love," and sure enough, he found it somewhere. I don't know the story of where he found it, but he got a hold of it and got the estate, Whitney Houston's estate, to release it.
No way.
And it became, I mean, it's just a global smash. So I've always wanted to skate to it myself, so I was a little bit jealous that they got to do it for the opening number tonight. But it was well done. I feel maybe they've been listening to the podcast because we had all the big tricks.
And I think for the first time tonight, we actually have to applaud the camera crew and the director because they caught all of the big tricks on camera. So I felt like we actually got to showcase each trick that the pro did. I mean, there were some beautiful tricks there from Robin and Andy. I mean, all of the pros looked great when they first came out. They were in those bright colours. This was a really joyful, celebratory, disco fun number. I mean, just the kind of number I like too. So I'm right there with you. I was jealous. I wanted to skate to it too.
And then the celebs came out as well.
Then the celebs came out. I mean, the number just grew and it built the pace, the soundtrack. It was just this huge crescendo of color and light and happiness.
And then we go to the solo skate.
Eek. Well, I wish they'd played the 12-inch disco version of the Kygo track and we could have just watched that for the whole night because things took a little downturn.
So basically, a new feature to the show.
Wah.
Yeah, it just was, I was looking forward to it because I'd heard about what was going to happen. I heard that there was going to be a group number with the celebs and that they were going to have solo sections, which on paper sounds great. Because
no, it doesn't.
Well, what we've seen in the past of Dancing on Ice, though, sometimes those solo numbers, when you have to do a solo number as a celeb, you get given a piece of music and you have to go out there and skate by yourself for a minute and a half.
May I remind you of Sébastien Foucan? Sébastien Foucan, who is a legendary freerunner, who was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Casino Royale. In the opening scene, he was doing the running. James Bond was chasing him. I mean, they were over the rooftops. They were under the scaffolding. They were flying on cranes. It was this incredible, incredible stunt scene. Sébastien Foucan then did Dancing on Ice with Brianne, was doing really well because obviously we know he's very athletic. I used to watch the guy warm up and he was honestly
incredible.
Talk about the spring in your step. But he had to skate a solo piece without his partner, Brianne, who's a good friend of mine. And Brianne and I were stood next to each other in the kiss and cry watching this unfold. And he forgot the routine. And he just lost the plot. Brianne was crying. He was crying. I mean, it was the most heartbreaking thing to go out on Dancing on Ice like that when you've like worked your hat off and then all of a sudden you get given this solo skate, which is completely out of your comfort zone because the whole time you've been partnering, as we've talked about, no, I don't like the solo skates.
So you totally hit the nail on the head, and I'm agreeing with you. But that's why I'm saying the group performance, in theory, on paper, to me, sounded better than when they have to do solo performances.
Okay.
Right?
That flew straight over my head.
Here we go.
Sorry about that. Well, it did. It flew straight over my head.
So, you're making a phone call?
Yeah. Hello.
There's Big Bird there.
Have you? Does anybody have any tickets, first class, to fly me out of here?
Oh my God. But yes, on paper, I thought that this group performance was going to be something new and exciting and special. But
I have to say, it really put the cat amongst the pigeons.
It really did. Oh my God. Wow. 2 in less than 3 seconds.
Come on.
What am I trying to say here?
I've thrown you.
You have.
What we were talking about was the group skate and how it put the cat amongst the pigeons because having 5 celebs on the ice at the same time, completely unsupported.
Yeah, which, is dangerous.
Right? Incredibly dangerous.
And as we saw in the VT, Miles hit his head in training, which can happen when you're with your professional partner anyway.
Less
However,
likely to happen when you're with your professional partner.
Less likely when you are with your pro. But you see that egg on his head?
I mean, he needed to build a nest around that. It was
It looked
huge.
like he was going to hatch a chicken.
Literally. It was massive.
I mean, he had it was like a hen's egg.
I don't think he should have been. Well, he was obviously cleared to skate. Look, let's talk about concussion. Miles, yes, he fell during the practice run. He did end up with a massive egg on his head. I have skated with concussion. It's not fun.
No.
And actually, concussion, and he probably had a whiplash from where he hit his head, and especially concussion with a whiplash is a very emotional injury. It makes you cry. It makes you weepy. And I had this conversation with Christopher Dean once. I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel great. And I was like, weepy, which I never cry. I mean, you could poke me in the eye and I don't cry. You could peel onions and I just won't cry. And I was all weepy and stuff. And I was like, Chris, I don't know what's wrong with me this week. And it's like, he said to me, it's because you've got a whiplash, a concussion. This was like 15 years ago. He's like, it's a really emotional injury.
Yeah.
So I thought Miles held it together.
He held it together. Obviously, he was cleared to skate by the medical team. So basically, this number starts out. They're all out there, kind of, I don't know, trying to create shapes that weren't really shapy.
They were milling about.
Then the first step out of the number was Ryan, which
could have been comedy gold because we know Ryan loves a toe pick.
Totally. And I feel it just was. I felt like all of the technique that he has learnt over the last 8 weeks kind of went out the window.
Listen, I'm a pair skater, or if you want to call me an ice dancer, whatever. I skate in partnership with somebody else. And if you ask me to skate by myself, it terrifies me. I've done it multiple times. Like sometimes I've had to cover. My partner had to get off the ice. His lace snapped, his back snapped, whatever. Something happened. His hoof snapped. I don't know. I've had to skate by myself on multiple occasions.
What about his wing?
Yeah, his wing. Just the one arm. But I just, it terrifies me to skate by myself. I don't enjoy it. And I'm sure they didn't enjoy it too. You know, there's a certain comfort of having a connection with your partner, of being face to face with them, of looking into their eyes and them going, and Duncan James talked about this week on our bonus episode, and the partner going to you, I've got you, I've got your back. No matter what happens, your partner's there and your partner knows that routine inside out. So if you forget it, they're going to talk you through it. If you trip, they're going to hold you up. I know that this is a competition and we talk about people skating on their own all the time, but we don't mean literally by themselves.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
And the biggest thing that I can equate to you guys at home listening to what it feels like to skate on your own for the first time, especially within a performance, is skating naked.
Yeah.
It is terrifying and it's horrible because all of the attention, even though you think when you sit at home and you watch, you're like, oh, Ryan and Amani are out there skating, all the attention's on them. Well, the operative word is them. It's not just you, right? And I think what we saw in this group skate with solo step outs was exactly that. They felt extremely, I'm obviously speaking for them, but they must have felt extremely vulnerable and terrified.
Oh, you could tell. I mean, birds of a feather flock together, and this is not the time to be flying solo. God, I'm on fire.
Wow.
No, but seriously, I mean, it's an awful thing to ask them to do.
Now, technically speaking, Ryan had some great skating in there. I mean, the positions, weren't the best, but he did a 2-foot spin.
Okay.
What?
I mean, I wouldn't say it was great skating. I wouldn't say that, not just of Ryan, I wouldn't say that for any of them. None of it was great skating. It was okay skating. It was beginner skating.
It was celebrity skating.
It was celebrity skating. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, okay. And then Amber was next to step out. She had a step sequence. She did the spiral that she has known to do. And then she had the twizzles, which happened on 1 foot. And then at the very end, it was a really wide shot. And I was really impressed by this. She did a 1-foot spin. And it actually looked really good.
Yeah, but we didn't quite see it properly on camera, did we?
We didn't see it on camera. And as well, we haven't seen that. We didn't see that of her, like in any of her routines that she had done with Simon.
No, she did do the 1-foot spin, didn't she, by herself? I think I've seen that.
She did, but not as good as it was.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Tonight,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I know she nailed it tonight.
Yeah. Then we had this kind of awkward, like celeb lifting celeb section.
Oh, please stop.
And that, I'm glad everybody was safe. But when it was happening, it made me really nervous.
So my husband, David Seaman, skated on the first series, and I think you did a similar group number, but you had pros on the ice at the same time. And he did a walkover. So he was assisting Kelly Holmes in a walkover. And the same thing, like they had an accident because celebs shouldn't have to support other celebs. That's what the pros are there for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous.
Then Adele was third to skate out. She did 3 jumps. She had some great knee slides. It was classic Adele. I felt though, again, I don't know. They didn't really tell us who choreographed those sections. I don't know if it was self-choreographed or if there was somebody involved or not, but I just felt Adele's skate. We've seen so much more of her when she skates with Mark in regards to the edges and the moves themselves. I felt like Adele was kind of going around in a circle on the ice and it was just very flat. Very one-dimensional. Yeah.
And I think it's really difficult when there's 5 of you on the ice and somebody has to do a breakout and one person goes off to the right to skate and then one person goes off to the left to skate and then you have no choice but to either go around them or go straight down the middle. I mean, it's all very congested. It's very difficult. There's people moving everywhere and let's face it, celebs on their own, of course they can skate, but then when you put the pressure of them having to do tricks and you put the pressure of the lights and the cameras and the action and other celebs around them, that is, as I said, absolutely terrifying. I
Yeah.
would have been flapping like a one-armed seagull.
Then Miles came out fourth. He did a great spin.
Well,
Again,
considering he got an egg on his head.
I know, right? Again, the bit like Ryan, I thought the technique just kind of dropped back 3 or 4 weeks, which I was a little bit disappointed with, but we've already discussed that now. And then Greg was last to skate with his step out. He did 3 inside loop jumps.
Yeah.
Which was great. And then again, there were a lot of knee slides
Oh,
in this.
I counted at least 3 knee slides. And after that, I stopped counting.
Like it just was, there's quite a few other moves that could have been potentially.
To be
brought
fair, I
into
think
it.
Greg's wasn't quite a knee slide. It was meant to be a drag, but then his back leg wasn't quite fully extended. So it looked like a knee slide. It was in between a drag and a knee slide
And
for
also,
me.
he's suffering from that groin injury too,
Right.
which when you
Well,
do.
then why give him a knee slide?
I know, exactly. Now, the way that this was scored was the judges then put them into first through fifth position.
Now, can you explain this to me? Because I don't know, I was like preening or something, but I didn't notice like how this was done. It just sort of suddenly appeared. Like somebody said, "We've decided what's going on." What happened?
So, well, as you know, the judges watched the dress rehearsals, and they probably had 2 options of how this would end up, depending upon how it ended up on the night. I guess they skate over to the kiss and cry. At that point, Christopher Dean then says, we've come to a unanimous decision of this is the placement of the 5 celebs. They then get points based upon their placement. So Greg, who was voted first place, got 5 extra points added to his next routine's
But what did
number.
the judges like have a conflab? Do we think
I don't know.
backstage? Like, were they tweeting each other? I mean, what happened? Were they texting? How did they do
I
it?
don't
Was
know.
there a
They didn't show-
WhatsApp group?
Maybe it was telepathically. Do you know?
I mean, I know you can't tell because I'm wearing a mask, but I'm literally rolling my eyes.
So Greg ended up first, Miles was in second, Ryan was in third, Adele was in fourth, and Amber was in fifth.
I guess each position had a corresponding point. So if you came fifth, you only got 1 point, and if you came first, you got 5 extra points. That's
Correct.
right. Okay.
That is correct. And those points are then added on to your main routine's number. Now, I didn't say skate.
No.
I said routine.
Yeah, I
And
heard
there's a
that.
reason for that, which we're going to get into now.
You were waiting for me to make a flying joke, weren't you? And I couldn't
was.
think of anything off the top of my head. It just flew straight over. Well, it all seems a little bit contrived, so we'll let it play out. We'll see how the next performances, not skates, performances go, and then we'll see how those added extra points made a difference to the leaderboard, because tonight's skate-off was, again, for me, a little bit controversial. It ruffled my feathers.
It was very controversial.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of chatter online. What are you looking at?
Well, the wing just started flapping.
Oh,
I don't know what happened. It's
that freaked me out.
The tapes, did you hear it? The
No.
tapes come off. So behind us on Dolly, even Dolly's wearing wings tonight, and her wings are taped on, not going to lie. She's had her wings clipped, and the tape's just untaped itself, and the wing started flapping, which couldn't be
wow.
more appropriate.
I mean, that's the perfect transition to talk about the flying routines.
Do we have to?
Yes, we
I
do.
don't want to.
I have this incredible love-hate relationship for the flying routines.
Well, I'm glad you have a love-hate relationship with it, because I just have a hate relationship.
So the reason I love them is my history with them.
And you a
With-
boy.
And we'll get into that. Yeah. The performance that I did with Suzanne for the final, which was the first time I think ever in Dancing on Ice history, but there was a perfect scores.
I mean, it was gorgeous.
And then again with Georgie Porter. I flew.
Amazing. Again, amazing.
It was, I mean, just visually stunning. And the girls were just perfect. Now, let's clear some things up. Why the flying?
Why the flock?
Okay. So, historically speaking, and I'm going to, all the trolls at home are always like, whenever you guys say historically speaking, you're incorrect. Well, I know for a fact I am correct in this. So,
Oh,
just troll us if you want to.
don't troll me. I didn't say anything. Troll him.
Historically speaking, the reason that flying was added to Dancing on Ice was because in Torval and Dean's world tours back in the 80s and the 90s, they did a lot of flying. It was an added element to their show, which hadn't ever been done before on the ice.
And let's face it, when Chris and Jane fly, everybody is in awe. They are brilliant, very accomplished flyers. But having said that, they do have a month's worth of rehearsals beforehand.
But at least probably a month to 2 months of
Yeah.
rehearsals for one number.
Sure.
absolutely incredible piece of Torval and Dean's history are some of their flying numbers. Now, in the original series back in 2006, series 1, they used flying as a small segment of the final. Okay? You had your favorite skate, which was a skate that you would reskate from that series that you were
So
on.
the skate that you thought was your most iconic performance
Yep.
throughout the whole series that got you to the final.
And then you would do a flying number. And then from that point, the public would then decide who would then go on to the Bolero. And that went for 9 series.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely stunning. I mean, some of the most iconic, visuals that Dancing on Ice has ever had. Then when the series rebooted 6 years ago, they took flying out of the equation with Dancing on Ice, mostly because that first year back, we were not in a studio that could house flying. It wasn't tall enough, it wasn't long enough, it wasn't secure enough. So that's why they then decided, oh, we don't need to do flying anymore.
And flying, for the people at home that are listening, requires a specific rigging setup. It's quite complicated. Obviously, it's a very dangerous thing to attempt anyway. So you have to get an outside company that has to come in and re-rig the studio. And sometimes in certain studios that we used, there just wasn't the space or there wasn't enough strength in the ceiling to anchor the rig.
Right. And it's very expensive as well, because what you guys don't know at home is they actually started flying rehearsals 2 weeks ago. So they have had an extra week of rehearsals on these particular performances.
Which means that Eddie the Eagle, despite the fact that he was voted out, would also have had a flying routine prepped and ready to go should he have gone through last week.
Correct.
Should he have gone through last week?
Should he have gone
Should
through?
he have gone through last week?
I think he should have gone through last week.
That was the question on everybody's lips.
It really was.
Yeah.
Now, how do you judge flying? Because it's not skating.
Well, surely we should have flying judges.
What, like Jane and Chris are in a harness the whole time?
Like flying Dutchmen. We should have flown some Dutchmen in and asked them to fly, to judge the flying.
It's a hard question. And I think that was the chatter online tonight was people are like, wait a second, this is dancing on ice. This is not flying on ice. And I understand the frustration behind it, because you do want to see skating performances. You don't necessarily want to see somebody who doesn't look very elegant being flung around in the air.
Listen,
with or without a professional skater.
So I have a question for you. We haven't seen flying in Dancing on Ice since when?
6 series now.
We haven't had a female winner on Dancing on Ice since when?
Ooh, that would have been Beth Tweddle.
So since the reboot, since we haven't had flying, and we haven't had a female winner either.
Mm-hmm.
I personally always feel that flying favors the girls. Now, I know you're going to say, well, it didn't tonight because the girls were both in the skate-off, spoiler alert. Yeah, I get that. I know that. But the girls scored much higher than the boys tonight on flying. The girls were beautiful in their flying routines tonight. The boys always kind of look like a piece of meat, just hanging there, like a turkey, like a flightless bird, like a dodo, like an ostrich, like a flamingo.
No, you're absolutely right. The flying does favor the female skaters for multiple reasons. And I think that's what I wanted to get into is how do we judge the flying? Because to compare the men flying to the female flying is very unfair.
Yeah.
What they look for when judging flying is when you take off from the ice, or what do your legs look like? What do your feet look like? What does your upper body look like, and your arms?
Again, naturally, the women always just style themselves better in the air.
Yeah. And then how do you land a flying element? And as we saw tonight, there were, these really long sweeping moves that potentially had flips in them or spins and twists in them. But then once you come back down to the floor or to the ice, how do you land it? Is it controlled and is it soft, or does it look like it's wooden footed? And we did see a lot of wooden feet tonight.
So in the past, it was always just 2 people in the flying. It would be the celebrity and their partner. Now, tonight we saw a lot of flying routines with extra pros on the ice, and particularly when the boys were flying. And the reason for that is, as a female pro, it's really hard to, one, control your boy when he comes flying at you. I mean, you're looking at somebody who weighs double your weight. I mean, I was like 6.5 stone when I was skating on Dancing on Ice. Those boys are at least 12.
Mm-hmm.
So at least double your weight. I mean, if it's somebody like my husband, you're looking at 17, 18 stone coming at you. And this is a strong man coming towards you at full speed and he's completely out of control because his feet aren't even on the ice, and you're expected to catch him, and then you're expected to manipulate him into another position and send him off again. No way,
Yeah.
just not happening. So hard. I would rip every muscle in my body when I was trying to do flying on my own with a celebrity boy. And it showed the strain on my face, the strain on the celeb's face. They know they're coming at you, and he can't stop himself. He's terrified he's going to knock you over. You're terrified you're going to get knocked over. You are going to get knocked over. And even if you're not knocked over, once you get hold of them, what can you do with them? Absolutely nothing. They're so heavy once they're in the air. So it has always typically favoured the female skaters because they've got a male partner, obviously a male pro partner who is much stronger than them and had a little bit more of a handle. Still hard for you guys by all means, but not the same as for the pro girl, which is literally impossible. Tonight they had extra pros on the ice for some of the routines, not all of them. But for this reason, again, it's just not fair.
But having the extra pros in the routines does level it out a little bit, right? Because as we go into this first flying routine with Miles and Vanessa, I was surprised to see Sylvain was stood next to Vanessa. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And then when we saw Miles then take off and then he was being manipulated by Sylvain, I went, oh.
Makes more sense.
This makes sense now. They've tried to level the playing field between the couples. And I appreciated that because, as you just said, it's hard for the female professionals to manipulate the male celebrities.
Virtually impossible.
Yeah. Especially depending upon the size of either the pro or the celeb.
Well, I mean, all the pros are teeny tiny anyway, regardless, and the boys are always usually a double the size.
So what we saw with Miles and Vanessa was Sylvain was used as part of the choreography to help launch and help catch Miles with these the throws, as we call them, right? However, unfortunately, I think Miles has just had not a bad week, but he's kind of just had a bad week.
He didn't have a great week last week either.
His hands were just wooden again.
Yeah.
So what do they judge again when you're flying is when you do the forward somersaults or the backward somersaults. How easily do you transition in and out of each move? How do you stop that rotation and that momentum as you're still flying through the air? Because ultimately you have to stop yourself with your arms against the wires themselves, right? Otherwise, you just keep flipping and flipping and flipping. And what I found with Miles is that when he would stop himself from a rotation, he would use his arms, but then his hands would just go wooden again. And I thought we got rid of that. There is a way to still do that without, being stiff.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said right from the beginning he was very uncomfortable. He was not into the flying. Emily and Temps from Made in Chelsea made a visit into the VT, and he was like excited to show it off to them. But I think the overall vibe for Miles was that he wasn't into it. Then he had the egg on his head. I mean, not easy to spin like that when you've had a head injury and to fly like that when you've had a head injury. And I think he reverted back to his arms because there's probably so much going on that he had to concentrate on just to even be there in that performance tonight with that head injury that he just reverted back. And I can kind of understand that. They had a little fumble halfway through the flying. I felt they lost their way. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't his week. And I really felt for him and Vanessa because they did some beautiful moves and lifts. I mean, he was carrying her. They showed a lot of grace. There was the inside-out dream spin, or as I think they called it on tonight's show, they called it the inside-out split lift. But I mean, it was a dream spin in all intents and purposes. They did some really, really lovely work, but I just feel like it wasn't his night.
I have to touch again.
I thought he was going to be in the skate-off.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I have to go back to what you said, though. The lifts that they had, the carry lifts, were incredible.
Yeah.
It scared me a little bit because the pros didn't have safeties on.
I know.
And we were always told, and this was 6 series ago, that if you go up in the air with your celeb, you couldn't go more than 3 feet or 1 meter. Vanessa was a good 2 to 3 meters in the air. Right?
I mean,
and there was no safety. That scared me. Stunning, but scared me.
Well, I don't know if that was just that they told you guys that, because I definitely would fly through the air more than that when I flew with Chris, and I hated it. I didn't like it because nothing against Chris. I mean, he's a great guy and he was like very secure and very strong boy. But still, accidents can happen and a girl doesn't have a safety on. It's not fair to ask a girl to do that. I didn't think it was fair to ask any of the pro girls to do that tonight. I thought it was dangerous and reckless, actually.
Yeah. Judges scored Miles. Ashley gave him a 9.5. Odie, Jane, and Chris, 9 across the board. So he ended up at 36.5.
That's one of his lowest scores for a while, surely.
Yeah, it really was. And you could see it on his face. He looked really disappointed. Chris said that he didn't feel it was very smooth and there was a lot of sticky points. And what he means by that is what we talked about. How do you judge a flying routine? When they land or when they take off, it shouldn't look clunky and it shouldn't look sticky. Like you have to land with your weight in your hips. Because if you land on your feet and then let the rig continue to move the wires, it pulls you off your feet. And that's when it can look really sticky, like kind of this awkward back and forth movement.
Yeah, it was a little bit choppy.
However, I do have to agree with Ash. Ash has been away for a couple of weeks, and he did comment on he really felt that Miles commanded that performance. You know, we've heard a lot over the past 3 or 4 weeks about he's this one trick pony with his face. He just has this like look, and he doesn't know how to change it or actually sort of mold with the character or move with the character. And Ash did appreciate the fact that he commanded the performance. And Ash, as Ash said quite a few times tonight, it's not about the skating tonight. It's about the performances. So I think that's why we saw that 9.5 from Ashley.
Yeah, okay.
Agree?
Yeah, I agree with Ashley. I actually didn't agree with the judges saying that he was a one-trick pony. He's a very smiley guy. He's a very happy guy. I think I've seen him do different emotions. But it wasn't his night tonight.
No, it really wasn't. Okay, moving on. Amber and Simon skated second. Wildest Dreams. Oh my God, the opening visual.
By Taylor Swift in the pink.
Oh,
wow.
It was stunning. And she had that silk. I mean, she had like
Gorgeous.
7 meters of silk flying behind her.
Absolutely stunning. But I have to say tonight in general, there has been a lot, other than the opening number, there's been a lot of black on the ice. You know, the group number that they did was kind of darker, kind of monochromatic colours. Everybody that flew had black. Obviously, Adele had black and red, but the majority of them were black or black and white. It's been a very monochromatic look. Amber shone bright in the pink. I mean, she really stood out. And boy, did she grab it with both hands. I mean, fly me to the moon, Amber. She was a stunning, stunning performance tonight, a standout performance tonight.
I mean, I really didn't write much down. It was beautiful. She had... So here's the thing, too. When the girl flies, right? And for me, it's really interesting. I like to watch their face more so than their body. Because when you fly through the air, there is zero consistency. You have no idea. When that boy launches you, right? When you see this, they're skating around in a circle and they're building up that momentum. And then he kind of flings and cracks the whip and you go flying through the studio. You have no idea where you're going to end up.
And you never know. Each time, sometimes he'll fling you fast, sometimes he'll fling you slow, sometimes he's tired, sometimes he's stronger, sometimes the timing's just great, sometimes the timing's off. You never know where you're going to end up.
And you can end up flying through the studio backwards, not knowing which way is front, not knowing where the cameras are. And that's why I think when the girls fly, I really watch their faces. She was so in control.
Confident.
She knew at every beat of that music where she was. She knew where the cameras were. She knew how to play it. She knew where to look. It was flawless. It really was flawless.
It was complete control, but elegant control.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely stunning. Well done, Amber.
She had incredible arms. Again, her feet, and that's when everybody flew tonight. I don't want to say skated. When everybody flew tonight, the first thing, I mean, you were sat next to me when we were watching, and I just always say, watch your feet, watch your feet, watch your feet. Because if you don't try and point, you get these like
sticks.
Literally sticks, like doll feet. That don't move.
Yeah. So, and I think that's, again, why it's unfair to the boys, because the boys do get very stiff feet and stiff ankles because boys aren't used to pointing their toes as much. Obviously, Amber's a performer. She is. She looks stunning from head to toe. Her lines were impeccable.
Head to toe pick.
Head to toe pick.
Mm-hmm.
Lines were impeccable.
And it was rewarded because we had our first ever perfect score.
Aha! Where's the flying... What is it?
Oh, where's the confetti cannons?
The confetti cannons.
Wah, wah.
Oh, we've run out of budget.
They spent it all on those feathers
that
you're wearing.
Or
they spent it all on your black lipstick.
Like my heart, black
Oh, it
heart.
looks like you're missing a tooth.
Oh, no, it does not.
I'm
You'll
kidding.
be missing a tooth in a minute.
But yes, Amber had perfect score, 10 across the boards.
Well, she lifted Simone in that split rotating lift. They referenced Jane Torval's performances from a decade ago. I mean, the girl was on fire.
She really was. And Ash said almost perfection. And I would have loved to have heard him say it was perfection.
Well,
I
he
don't
gave
know
her a
where
10, so it must have been perfection.
Exactly. But where did the almost come from?
How could it have been more perfect? It could have been more perfect because Christopher Dean said he would have given her an 11.
Zingo. Bingo.
What?
I
Did
don't
you?
know.
Did a fly past? What happened there? Mosquito?
It is flying week.
There you go.
Did you notice my little birds?
I did. You bought these, didn't you? They're so cute. Look,
They're just the tiny little finches that sit on our mics.
I'm just going to tickle him. He's so cute. I'm just giving him a
That's
little
like
dust down.
cannibalism. Don't feed a bird a feather.
I'm not feeding him. I'm cleaning him, preening him. Also, I bought some birds in this week, but of course mine are black crows.
Like your soul.
Like my black heart. I bought in gothic birds.
You are a goth.
That's right.
All right, skating third, Ryan and Amani. Ain't that a kick in the head?
Yeah, I mean, this is Robbie Williams, okay? So we know it's going to be smooth and suave. And I don't think we could have picked a more perfect piece of music for Ryan to skate to. I mean, he's just, you can tell, he's just grateful to be in the semi-final. His mom came down, his fiance came down. He's like a little kid in a candy shop. He's so excited to see everybody. We had Colin and Brendan on the ice, so it was nice to see them. I did think it was smooth, it was suave. They did a few really cute little tricks. You know, at the beginning when he was passed around from each of the pros, from pro to pro to pro. I thought that was very cute. They did some pull butterflies. He did get a little bit lost mid-routine.
Yes.
He got a little bit turned around, a little bit disorientated, but he did recover well. So he did a bounce spin, like kind of.
Yeah, so a bounce spin, aka headbanger. Granted, they didn't bounce it, but Brendan spun him around by his ankles.
Grabbed him by his ankle and just twirled him.
Yeah.
I loved it.
So what I loved about this was, as you said, there were a couple of shaky moments. The backflip sequence, which flies across the length of the rink. The exit was just really shaky. I think he got lost, which is really easy to. After you do that second backflip, you have no idea which way is up, right?
And it was quite a dark creative as well. So front and back can seem quite similar.
It was a little bit shaky from that. And then coming down to the ice, the rotation got the best of him. So it kind of hopped its way around as he went down. But what I loved is he brought characterization to a flying number.
Oh, he totally acted his way through it. It was fantastic.
We've never seen that before.
I know.
Normally flying is like, oh, it's beautiful and it's fluid and it's this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. I've never seen, not a comedy piece. It wasn't comedy. It was a characterized, choreographed piece.
Christopher Dean said it was a cheeky character.
And that's exactly what I wrote down.
And Ash said that it was the golden era of MGM movies, that it was creative storytelling and that he nailed it.
He did.
He
He
did.
really did. Well, I loved when he skated over to the kiss and cry and they were like, how was that? And he was like, well, at least in this, I can't fall over. It was like,
But he almost did. Sorry, Ryan. You did have a little trip in there. I didn't miss it. Somebody
but
said...
he wouldn't have hit the deck though.
No, but somebody said... Well, no, because the flying rig would have held him up, of course. But somebody said, oh, he didn't get tangled. He did get tangled. I don't know
did
which
get
of the
tangled
judges
a
said
little
that,
bit.
but he did get tangled a
Yeah.
little bit. But Oti said that he understands the performance. And I think this harks back to what you said about it being very characterful
Yeah.
and very committed to an acting role, which we haven't seen in flying. So well done for bringing that to the table. I think, it would be hard to ask Ryan to skate without being in some sort of character. We saw last week with his wham.
Of course. He's an actor.
Every week he brings something new to the table, and I like it.
Yeah.
He and Adele are like that. They remind me of each other. They're very in different ways. They both tell beautiful stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Odie said he has scarecrow arms.
He did.
Scarecrow arms?
I think he did.
Who's going to scare the crows off? It's flying week. No scaring crows. I'm offended.
Well, I think the ones on the table look a bit
Terrified.
petrified.
I see what you did there.
Right?
I'm not the only one with puns, you see.
9.5s across the board. And I think it was really well deserved. There was a lot of chatter online about, those scores were too high for Ryan, but let's not discount the fact of how well this was performed.
People
Again,
online were saying the scores were a little high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think he picked up a couple of points there for the characterization and for the performance and for the acting. So
Yeah.
that's possibly why we saw them be a little bit higher than you would have expected, because the flying itself was perhaps a little bit below those scores, but the performance was perhaps a little bit higher.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right,
Well,
fourth.
we should move on to Greg and Vanessa.
Yes, please.
Greg and Vanessa James, because they skated to Coldplay, Sky Full of Stars. And despite the fact that in the VT we saw that Greg was stressed and had a little bit of motion sickness or whatever, he was bruised and he was blooded. However, when those lights came on, what an opener. The light up, he was stood on a light up neon piano.
I know.
And then
gorgeous.
the backdrop lit and it was a galaxy. It was northern lights. It was absolutely breathtaking. And then off he went. Wow.
I think it was so impressive because the flying movements that he had, and we have to keep in mind too, and consider the fact that he's 6'1" or 6'2". So he's not going to hide easy, right? Like you stick out like a sore thumb when you're that big and in the air.
And also, I mean, obviously he's a jumper, so he understands flight and he understands movement through the air. But that's a lot of body mass to stop. Once he starts tumbling and he starts moving, I do not want to be underneath that freight train coming at me.
And he was graceful, which really surprised me. I did not expect him to be graceful in the air. We've seen him sort of pick up the gracefulness on the ice through the movements with Vanessa. But I think as well, not only being graceful, but his face told like the entire story. The smile that he had on, I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, he was really in the moment and he was living his best life. And I felt like Greg was flying as if it could have been his last performance and he was just absolutely, as you said, living in the moment. Yeah. He had a double tumble. He did a Detroiter, or you would call it a barbell, with Brendan, where he laid flat on his back. Typically, we only see girls do this, as we only see girls do the headbanger. So flying does allow the males to play around with tricks that they wouldn't ever normally be able to do. So he did a Detroiter. He laid on his back. Brendan was underneath him and span him flat on his back. I mean, we know he's an athlete, so he's got this incredible core.
Yeah.
He was just loving life, really. I mean, I said it was light years ahead.
Did you?
I did. Because I was trying to get into the astronaut theme. That was all. I didn't really mean it.
I have to commend him on the control of the entire performance. Like you said, he did 2 passes of tumbles. The one, though, that had 2 or 3 backflips in it, coming out of that, as we saw with Ryan, didn't have the control on that last half rotation of that flip, where as Greg came out of that second flip, it was seamless into the next movement. And again, that takes a lot of skill.
Well, and also it takes a lot to stop that movement. And I think that's why we saw that he was so bruised and so blooded on his arms from doing that all week.
Judges across the board, Ashley gave him a 9, Odie 9.5, Jane and Chris 9s as well, 36.5. Very interesting comment from Ashley.
Which was?
He said, this did not play to your strengths, right?
Well, because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
And he barely fits in that harness. And when you think about the harness with the strings attached to it, obviously they're not strings, they're wires. I mean, he's now got to squeeze his shoulders through that to be able to do those tumbles. And Chris said that facially enjoyed it. He was relaxed. But he said he didn't finish his arms off. Well, he's not going to be able to, is he? With that harness in the way and those wires in the way. It's like a puppet on a string.
Yeah, literally. And Odie said that and I wanted to kind of explain this. She said that it looked like he was waiting. A lot through that performance. And what she means by that is when you come out of a sequence of moves, when you fly, you have to time everything perfectly to when you hit the ice. Because if you finish, let's say 3 backflips and you're still 2 meters in the air, you have 2 meters to come down. And so it's a matter...
And the music's still playing. The music's not going to wait for you.
Yeah. So it's a matter of finding the timing of the first flip to the second flip. Okay, now we're starting to be let down by the fly master. There is somebody off stage who controls the up and down and the side to side. And I think what we saw is that they were either too early or too late to a specific point in that music, because it's hard to choreograph to a beat when it comes to flying because there's so many variables.
Yeah.
So what we saw and what Odie mentioned is she just saw a lot of waiting for the next cue in the music to either take off or land.
Yeah,
However, she gave him a 9.5.
So she wasn't that bothered by it, to be honest. She hated it, but also she liked it. She's a bit like you. She has a love-hate with flying. We threw to Vanessa James as well. They actually gave her the microphone and she actually got to say a few words, which I loved because I'm a big fan girl. And Vanessa said that he was a natural at flying.
You could tell.
So they brought his daughter and his wife in, and you could see that his face lit up, and he said he just wanted to do really well for them, which I think he did. He nailed it. Did he get top place?
No. Oh, sorry. He did, yes. When we add in the points from the solo
that
skate.
is a whopping 5 points, so that is going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
What was his overall score?
Oh, let me get the leaderboard out.
Well, if you don't mind, I mean, you've got one job.
Wow.
So if you couldn't, seriously.
My one job is to sift through my cards. Greg's total score after the solo skate and his flying number was 41.5.
And so presumably before his solo skate, his flying was 36.5.
Correct.
So where was he on the lead?
What, 41.5 minus
I'm
5?
dyscalculic. I find that hard. I was really impressed with myself. 5 points to Frankie. So what, where was he on the leaderboard?
First.
Before flying?
Oh.
No. Sorry. Where was he on the leaderboard before you added in the 5 extra points?
They didn't really tell us.
Well, that's confusing.
When you skated the flying number, your points were already added because the solo skate. I just thought of something. They should have done it the other way around.
Yes. I was so confused.
That's a...
that was boggling my brain.
They should have flown first and then done the solo skate.
Yeah.
Because then think about the jeopardy, even more so.
Yeah. I mean, because we already knew going into the flying who was in first position. If you've got 5 extra points and the person, or 4 extra points and the person who's only got 1 point, with flying, because it's kind of like neither here nor there, you can't even really fight for that because your flying routine's set and it's just going to go the way it's going to go.
You probably know it sucks.
You're just dangling, right? Exactly that.
You're like, I'm done.
May as well grab a cab.
I thought you were going to say a cat.
Fly
with a cat.
I mean, literally. That's how I fly in the ointment.
Oh, my God.
And we'd like to thank our sponsor, Lakeside Shopping Centre, the leading retail and leisure destination in Essex.
Just 35 minutes from London with free parking and over 250 stores to discover.
And this week, I'm wearing H&M.
And I have to say a massive thank you to Timberland for my boots. All right, let's move on to Adele and Mark. Once again, closing the show, which means something is good is about to happen.
Houston, we had liftoff.
We had liftoff. They skated to Rise Like a Phoenix. I'd never heard the track before, but oh my God.
All Rise. It was spectacular. I'd never heard that track before. I thought it was just me.
I'd never heard it before. And how fitting to the performance that they gave. Going back, though, the VT, girl suffers from motion sickness, and I felt for her.
She was sick as a dog. Wow.
I've had motion sickness on a boat once so bad that I had to lay flat on... Why are you laughing?
That's so funny.
Why is that funny? Okay. Producer Jen just loved my story because she can relate. I was on a boat and I had to lay flat on the middle deck because I guess that's you worked on ships, you understand. That's the least movement or whatever. But I threw up constantly for about 45 minutes.
Wah, 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 wah.
Wow, I wasn't looking for sympathy. I'm just saying I can relate to motion sickness.
I mean,
it's horrible.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. I've had motion sickness too. Okay, wow. I'm really sorry. I wish you had a little blanket to take with you. And some ginger biscuits, some ginger nuts.
I had some ginger ale.
Did you?
Thank you very much.
Well, it just wasn't going to help Adele. I mean, the girl was green.
Like Elphaba.
Like Alphabet. I was concerned. I was like, she's not going to make it.
I know.
But then she came out and all I wrote was red, red, red. Wow. She was red from head to toe.
You wrote red 3 times?
I did. I wrote. Hang on. I wrote. Wait a minute. I'm going to find my notes. In a minute. I'm going to get there. Just hang on a second. I'm getting there now. Adele. I put red makeup, red and black again. That's what I wrote. There were red silks. She was head to toe in red.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about the silk. So we know that Adele has a stoma bag. Obviously, that's going to present challenges in itself because the harness that the boys and Amber wore for flying is typically fitted around the hips or around the waist. It's very tight. And also there's a lot of movement there. I don't think a stoma bag would have been solid enough to take that movement. I think it would have torn or ripped it out of her even worse. So absolutely not. So
Genius move.
yeah, they decided to do silks. Now, what I like about this and what I thought was genius about it is Mark Hanretti, and you probably don't know this, Mark Hanretti is a genius in the silks. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's one of his specialties. He does it as a specialty act. I don't know why we never see it on Dancing on Ice. We never get to see Mark fly, and he is an astonishing artist in the air with that. But so he knows how to choreograph silks really well. He's done it many times. And this piece was a pièce de résistance. It was a swan song. It was stunning.
Perfect for you.
Thank you. I'm not here to just swan around.
It was glorious.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, if we talk about how do you judge somebody on the silks, well, you judge them pretty much the same as you do on the wires.
Well, I
Her
actually think
legs-
silks is harder.
Just cut me off, why don't you?
Sorry about that.
Silks is harder. You're
I'm
right,
just-
because there's more to manipulate, right? When you're flying in a harness, you have two wires that you do not touch.
Yeah.
But in silks, you have to be able to manipulate the silk itself. And she had four.
Yeah.
Well, there was two loops, which means there's four legs, if you want to call them that she had to work with. But to fly in the silks, her legs were straight
I know.
when they needed to be straight.
I know.
Her toes were pointed when they needed to be pointed. Her arms were glorious.
Stunning. Her back.
And for somebody who's not a dancer, I mean, I compared her directly to Amber. and
Absolutely.
you normally wouldn't,
No.
right? Because of Amber's dance background.
Well, the training.
And again, literally took the words out of my mouth when Jane said, "Is there nothing you can do?"
No, she said, is there nothing you can't do?
That's what I meant to say.
Is there nothing you can do? Are you just going to sit there? Like, what are you going to do? Can't you do something? Wow. Wow, Jane. rein it in.
Apologies, Adele. Is there nothing you can't do? Because my God, that was beautiful.
Absolutely stunning. And Adele, we saw, was emotional again this week. And I worry about Adele because she's looking a little fragile for me. I'm worried. I'm concerned that she's getting enough nutrition. I'm concerned that she's working so hard and her body's fragile to start with. And I know she wants it so desperately, and I want it so desperately for her. But I think she has a huge challenge on her hands. This week ahead is going to be very, very difficult. And I feel like she's already stretched to her physical limits. And I know she's run marathons, but that's not the same as working day in, day out like this.
Well, if we break that down a little bit, basically what happens on the final, as we've seen from previous years, is multiple skates,
Yeah.
training for Bolero.
Everybody
even though
does that.
Everybody does that. And then the showcase numbers, which are huge because they bring in extra skaters, extra dancers. It's a full week of rehearsal for that one piece. But I mean, not just a training session. You'll have 2 to 3 hours of production rehearsals on top of all of the other training that you have to do. So it's something that you have to really pace yourself for.
It is a monster week. You and I have both been in the final. We know how hard that week is physically on our celebs. And everybody who does this show, I don't care if you're the skinniest person or the fittest person or the strongest person or the fattest person, you lose weight doing this show. And I don't say that because I think it's a good thing. I do not. And people online go crazy for it. Oh, look how much weight they've lost. Look how much weight they've lost. This is not a good thing. Like losing weight in an uncontrolled environment like this, when you're not trying to, when you're eating like crazy and you're still losing weight, it's not healthy for your body. And I already worry that she's very fragile to start with. So I just want to send her like extra strength and extra positivity to just get through this last 7 days. Because
Pace yourself.
Pace yourself. And bear in mind, she's been working really hard for now, 4 months going on?
Yeah.
This is exhausting work.
Really is.
And I really worry about that. And especially when I see her get emotional, because as I said last week, I feel that she's a very strong person, but I know that you can do many things with your body. When you feel like your body is broken and you feel like you're very tired and you feel like you hit rock bottom physically, you haven't. If your mind stays strong, you can get through anything. You can skate through incredible injuries, falls, setbacks, illness. But once your mind goes, then you can't do any of that. And your mind and your body are intrinsically linked to your nutrition. So I think it's really important that we take care of Adele this week and make sure she's getting extra calories, whatever it is that she can eat. Obviously, I understand that with her stoma bag, she will have specific nutritional requirements that will need to be met. But I feel like she needs to go above and beyond that and try just to get some more energy into her.
And the emotion that we saw was when she went over to the kiss and cry, and Holly and Steven noticed she was emotional. And the quote that she said was, she did that for anybody that's going through something difficult at the moment, that you can rise up and you can come back again. And cancer was like a fire to her body.
It burnt her body to the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this was very symbolic and very just a beautiful story, really, about her rise again.
I think she put her heart and soul into this performance. She was incredibly graceful, but also incredibly gracious. I mean, she has this inner kind of power about her. She's a very powerful person.
Hmm.
We know that in the way that she speaks. We know that in what she says at the end of her performances and the way that they affect her. But I think she also radiated that this week when she was flying through the air. It was almost like a freedom for her because she didn't have to focus as much on the skating, which we know everybody has to focus on and put their concentration heads on. But I feel like this week when she was flying, she was just free.
I feel with Adele, what we've noticed over the past couple of weeks, I mean, we knew from the beginning she was going to be good. And then she had sort of that turning point when we went, wow,
Matrix for me.
literally.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed from her over the past 2 to 3 weeks is out of all of the competitors, I feel she's the most present.
Yeah.
And that's hard for people to understand,
Yeah.
but also to execute because you've got so many things to think about when you step out onto that ice. The crowd, you can hear them. Somebody might call out your name. It can throw your focus. Your pro might say something to you that was unexpected.
Or if you
anything.
see the VT, that can really affect you. We saw Kate,
And
her partner was on the VT, and that can affect you before you go out.
tonight she stepped out there and I mean, the place literally the roof could have fallen through and it wouldn't have affected that performance. It just was, she was so in the moment.
Yes, she
It
was.
was beautiful. Scoring wise, Odie and Ashley gave her 10s, Jane and Chris 9.5s. I would have loved to have seen another 40 performance from this. However, there was a tiny, tiny, tiny little moment that Chris picked out that was a bit sticky.
He said it was sticky on the ice.
And this goes back to what we talked about previously with Greg and Vanessa James, is the timing of the choreography was a little bit early for where they were in the music. And you are set to cues with the flying rig. So if you're on the ice too soon, or you haven't finished, or you finish that movement too soon on the ice, the guy that flies you isn't going to go until it's written into the music.
Because it's not safe in case you're not
safe.
ready.
Yeah. And there was this moment when they kind of were just stood there. And I think that's why we saw the 0.5 reduction off the 10s from Jane and Chris, is because there was just that tiny little moment that was sticky.
Oh, they are sticklers for perfection.
They really are. But there was a lot of chatter online about, that was just as good as Amber's. How come Adele didn't get a perfect 40 as well? And what that is because what's something we haven't really discussed, though, is not only is it the celeb on the ice with the professional and potentially other pros on the ice tonight, as we saw helping manipulate those celebs, you also have the fly crew. And that typically is 2 to 3 people who know the choreography inside and out, and they are pretty much doing the performance with you.
Yeah.
And we have to give props to those boys, too, because they work just as hard. They are... If anything goes wrong, they see it before it happens. And they will not execute a fly maneuver if the skater isn't in the right position. So
100%. I mean, I think what was interesting tonight is that we saw all of the boys had extra help on the ice. They had extra pro boys on the ice. And we've talked about that already, how it's so hard for the pro girls to just do a flying number with a celebrity boy. It's almost impossible, actually. And so they had extra help with extra pro boys on the ice, which I felt made their numbers feel a little bit more produced, a little bit more professional, a little bit more polished.
Mm-hmm.
The girls, Amber and Adele in this case, didn't have extra help. And I think
this goes back to, sorry to cut you off, but I think this goes back to it's help leveling the playing field between the male celebs flying and the female celebs flying.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It did help with flying the boys and getting them off the ground and getting them into better shapes, because obviously the boy-on-boy action was helping with the strength of that.
That sounds hot.
And as soon as that left my mouth and went into the universe,
Keep that.
I knew someone was going to giggle at that. But I felt like it also made the numbers feel a bit more produced and a bit more like an entire show in their own right. Whereas with Amber and Adele, you didn't have that. And I hope that isn't the reason why they were both voted into the skate-off. But I think you have to look at that and say, well, there's a common denominator.
Fair enough. That is a common denominator. However, I also feel that Adele and Amber didn't need the big production numbers because they were so brilliant at that flying.
Well, they were so brilliant at that flying, and they were so...
But keep in mind, part of the reason why the 2 girls were on the bottom was because they were also in the bottom on the group skate.
Yeah. I mean, I know where you're getting at with that. You're saying that the girls aren't skating as strong as the boys. I don't think that's entirely true. I think, I think,
Because Amber scored perfect 40 on her
yeah,
flying.
yeah. But and
So
she
she
has
didn't need it.
1.5 million followers.
Oh, so are you saying that people at home
Are not voting for the girls.
aren't voting for the girls?
Well, it seems that way. And the people at home were watching what I watched. They watched all of the boys with these big production numbers and flying, and then they watched the girls kind of just fly solo. And then you're exposed if something happens. You haven't got these other skaters spinning around you and distracting from that. And the people at home didn't vote.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If
I mean,
obviously
Amber's
didn't-
got 1.5 million followers. Where are they?
Yeah. So if we have a look at the leaderboard, again, this is combined against both of the numbers. Greg was first with 41.5. Amber, Ryan, and Adele were joint second with 41. And then Miles was third with 40.5.
I mean, how does that happen?
What's that?
Well, you've got 5 couples and
Three of
of
them.
them all scored the same. Like,
Well, they scored a total of the same, but their flying routines weren't the same.
no,
Right?
I know. And then their solo skates weren't the same, but they all ended up being the same. It's like Yahtzee. How many times can you score Yahtzee?
Yahtzee, where are you from? South Kakalaki?
Yeah, I'm your neighbor.
Draw the sheets. I mean, no, draw the sheets. Draw the curtains, Millie. Draw the curtains. The crazy ladies next door looking in.
Peeking in.
Um,
Listen, I just thought that for me, when things like that happen, and then we see the 2 girls in the bottom 2 in the skate off, you know, I actually thought tonight, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I thought tonight there might be a double elimination. We know that there were 5 people and that we had to get down to 3 historically in the final. There's always been 3 people. There's never been 4. This year we have 4 for some reason. We didn't have a double elimination. But I didn't know that going into this skate off. And I was thinking, well, what if we lose both of the girls?
yeah.
I mean, that would have been a travesty for Dancing on Ice because these girls are stunning.
Yeah.
Stunning skaters.
They really are.
So I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the people at home are thinking, and I wish you'd let me know. I don't know what people are voting for, but it makes me a little bit sad.
And regardless of what you think about these people personally, and, you know, going through social media when the show is live is a little bit disheartening. And I do
Yeah.
want to put kind of a message out to everybody that is either watching or listening to us. Just be kind. There is a lot of crap that people are talking about, especially Amber. I don't know why Amber is getting the stick the past
Why?
couple of weeks. I don't know. But nobody seems to like her. And
And she
everybody
seems
wants
to be-
is so vocal about how much they hate her. And it's like,
Wow. Really?
but why? What is the point? What
And
is
she
the
se-
point?
She seems to be so gracious when she's in these skate offs. And she's taking it so well, and she's like being a real trooper about it.
But I just think, you know, if you're sat at home watching the show, you must be enjoying it because you're watching it. You know, you wouldn't, I don't know about you guys, but I don't watch things that I don't enjoy.
Right.
But then to get on social media and rip people apart like that, keep in mind, they're human beings too. You know?
Well, I hope she's not reading it. Who is it? I'll find them. I'll peck at them.
Send that black crow after them.
I'll get beaky.
Get it. All right. So the skate off, yes, was Amber and Adele. An all girls skate off, as we said. Amber had a tiny little bit of a wobble halfway through on a mohawk,
Yeah.
which unfortunately at that point it was like game over.
Yeah, because her and Adele, you know, they're the 2 women, so we can really compare apples to oranges here. And, you know, we know that Adele is a strong skater anyway. I think last week it was somebody said that she was the strongest skater in the competition. So we already know that if she's going to come out and she's going to skate clean, you're going up against the strongest skater in the competition. Granted, you made the point last week that when the celebrities' skate-off routine is choreographed. It is choreographed pre-Christmas. So, of course, perhaps she wasn't the strongest skater in the competition at that point, and it was choreographed with that in mind. However, I mean, she came out tonight. She skated beautifully. I'd never heard that piece of music before. Had you?
Mm-mm.
No, another new one for Adele.
Yeah.
And this is another problem I have as well, because sometimes it's nice to have new things, but really on a show like Dancing on Ice, the music is very emotive. So if you're playing a banging tune that everybody can get up and rise out their seats
Well,
and give
it's
it a little
very
bit.
important, the music selection.
Exactly that. People are going to get behind it, start singing along. Oh, it brings back memories of when you were at a wedding or when you met your partner or whatever it is, you know, when you were at school, it brings back memories. But if you're skating to completely new pieces, like Adele did both times, the Phoenix one that I'd never heard of and her skate off, which I'd never heard of, you're not actually eliciting an emotional response from people. People are going, oh, what's that? You already feel a little bit confused. So I think that's also unfair. However, tonight Amber did stumble. And so, of course, it was clear and obvious that she would be going home.
Yep.
Although she did stumble last week as well, and that didn't happen. So now I'm confused.
I just think the goalpost and the rules are kind of fluid within Dancing on Ice.
Well, okay, but can somebody please send me a text and let me know what's going to happen next week? Now we have 4 people in the final.
No, that'll cost him 25p. Too much. Over budget. But Amber, I just have to say, Amber and Simon, congratulations.
Yeah.
Beautiful performances. I mean, some iconic pieces on Dancing on Ice this year.
Barbie on Ice.
I mean, it was
stunning.
I loved the journey. And again, as Frankie said, which was very well put, you were so gracious through this whole process. And that says a lot.
Well, we're going to see her next week anyway, because all the celebs come back and skate in the final regardless.
Everybody's back next week.
That's right. Well, I hope so. We don't know that for sure.
Oh, well, I would assume so. That would be weird if they didn't.
I hope so.
Class of 2024. Oh, no, she's not here.
Oh, can you imagine? People are like, I can't be
Yeah,
bothered.
because it has happened before.
No, it has happened. I mean,
we won't name names, but
do
a
couple
little
of
Google
times.
search.
Yeah,
Huh?
a couple of times. Couple of times.
Has it?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh.
Didn't come back.
Can you put subtitles on that?
And also, didn't come back.
Great. Okay, so
and didn't come back either.
who?
There's 3, I think, that I can name.
Okay.
I'm not going to name names because you just want me to get into trouble again.
No, I don't.
You do.
So let's do something a little bit different. Rather than do the questions in the comments in the bonus episode, let's do them right now, because you guys, the bonus episode, you are not going to want to miss a single second, a single word, a single minute of it, because the guest that we have on, should we just tell them now?
It's such a big scoop. It is magnificent.
Gemma Collins is in the house.
Wait. The GC
is in the house. Now, not only do we discuss her Dancing on Ice journey and kind of unpack everything that happened on the show, but for the first time ever, we talk about the fall. The fall that sent us trending globally.
I mean,
that still haunts me.
We unpacked some trauma tonight.
It was extremely emotional, I have to say. She's a busy girl. As we all know, we probably all have heard what she's up to lately with her businesses, this, that, and the other. But it was a beautiful conversation. It was really nice.
It was great to have her on.
Do not miss. That's coming out on Friday. All right. So questions and comments from you guys at home. So freaking busy. I know I say this every week, but this week was especially busy. And I think because we were tweeting, whatever you want to call it, during the show. Send us your questions, because there was a lot of questions about everybody wondering what was going on with the flying. But this actually goes back to last week from Spenny.
Yep.
Who we know, we've answered her questions previously as well. But I thought this was a really good question because it segues into something. We mentioned previous pro skaters on the pod quite a bit, because a lot of them are our friends, right? And it made her,
and they're legends.
And it made her realize that we no longer are given the opportunity to get to know the pros in the way that we used to, so that they can form sort of one of, a favorite professional of theirs, because the pros don't get to talk a lot, right?
This has been annoying me for years.
And she asked, do we agree with it? And we both, if I can speak for you, we both do agree with it. But something that we'd like to tell you guys is that we will be continuing the podcast series after Dancing on Ice finishes, because we have recorded 5, 6-ish, half a dozen maybe, pods with previous professionals. So again, we kind of dive into what they're up to now. And
I think it's important to tell the pro stories, because although you may have a favourite pro, and I'm sure some of you do, and perhaps your pro is no longer on the ice, dancing on ice anymore, they are still continuing to be present in the pro skating world. And so it's important to tell their story and their journey throughout their series of Dancing on Ice, and also what they've been up to afterwards. And actually, we've had some really, really fascinating, heartwarming, heartbreaking stories. So you guys are really going to want to tune into this, especially if you've had a favourite pro, or if you followed the pro stories in the last 16 series of Dancing on Ice.
Yeah, for sure. So keep an eye out for that. We will have more information for you on that very soon.
I'm so excited about the pro sessions.
This question has just come in from Richard, and he has said, do you think that the skate-off should be the main routine against each other instead of a routine choreographed when they weren't as good? I don't understand
From
this
before
question,
Christmas.
Richard.
I think Richard's asking if they should skate the routine that they skated in the show. So each week you progress and you get better, don't you? And then you should reskate that routine for your skate off. And we actually used to do that.
We used to do that.
Yeah, and I used to quite like doing it that way. But this week, I don't know what they would have done if that had been the case.
So, because of flying. Well, they would have done last week's routine then, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
It's
But that's a
tricky.
great question. I think that is something that when the format changed 6 series ago, they got rid of that. I think it was because they wanted Jeopardy.
And I think they wanted to show off different costumes and different routines. And sometimes
it just makes the show look a little bit fuller.
Yeah, and sometimes you might do a very, very specific comedy routine in the show, and then maybe it's not fair to have that as your skate off.
Or like props.
Yeah, because I
You're not
remember.
going to want to skate twice with props.
No. And
also, where's props this year?
No props this year. Maybe they'll do it next week. We don't know.
Maybe.
There's no way they're going to do that in the final.
Mark from Twitter has asked, was there ever a move when you as a pro insisted that it is too dangerous and you won't do it, and why?
Yep.
What was it?
A headbanger.
With a celebrity?
Yeah. They weren't ready, and I knew that as a pro. And, look, it's hard because Chris and Jane are ice dancers, so they don't typically do a headbanger move. I'm not saying they can't do it. Of course they can.
They have.
Yeah, I know. They're geniuses, whatever. They can do it, of course. But they don't do it regularly, and they've never done it with a celeb. And I have. And I think at some point you have to trust your own instinct and save yourself. It's not safe to say, okay, we'll try. Like, if you don't feel that they're ready, there are steps that you have to take before you get to be able to perform each particular trick. And each trick has its own level of danger, and each trick has its own way of being done, and it has its own little tricks that you can do within it to make it safer, and that you have to teach, and little knacks that you have to get, and timings that you have to get. And if your celeb isn't getting it for that week, I'm all about saying, no, not this week. We're going to do something else. Mm-hmm. Stay safe, people, because you want to make it to the end of the competition, right?
Of course. Mine was a backflip.
Yeah.
Now, that is not a backflip that I do. Yeah. It is a trick that I then throw the girl over my head and hope and pray that, she lands on her feet. But it is just way too dangerous for me to even consider teaching a female celeb to do that.
Well, because it's so out of your control.
So out of my control, and I'm a control freak.
And the same with the headbanger for me. I'm like, no.
Johnny Mark has asked, has any pro or celebrity accidentally cut the wire while wearing the harnesses?
Oh, I mean, I don't remember that.
I don't believe so, but let's also give a bit of background with the safety. The skates are sharp, but they're not that sharp. The wires that you fly on would hold up an elephant.
They're super strong.
Yeah.
I mean, they held up my husband. He practiced. He's not an elephant, more like a rhino.
Yeah.
He practiced the flying. He actually didn't ever get to perform the flying, but he practiced the flying. And I think what happened was he was so heavy, because he's not like a heavy, like if you're like a heavy person, you're probably not going to be very athletic, right? And you're probably not ever going to do something like flying or pole dancing. I don't know, things that are really hard for heavier people to do. But he's an athletic person. He's so strong. And so when it came to the flying, I mean, he was hurling through the flying. And I think they probably were like, no.
Yeah.
He's just too big.
It's too much.
Yeah,
too much mass.
And he's wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he found it really hard to get through
I bet.
through the wires.
And then Erica has asked, honestly think that the flying must be so difficult, but for a semifinal performance, people at home want to see more skating.
Oh, agree 100%.
And I have to agree with you, Erica.
Who was that? Erica?
Yeah.
Big it up, Erica. You should be a judge on Dancing on Ice.
I think it was an interesting choice this week to put flying. We've said this already tonight, but it is an interesting choice to put flying in a semifinal performance because, again, this is the last time we're going to get to see them skate before the final. So I would have liked to have seen skating tonight.
I know, me too. I don't know what happened with tonight's show. It fell flat for me.
Yeah.
Flat as a pancake.
Maybe its wings were clipped.
Oh, look at you with your bird-like pun. Finally, you've come in and joined the nest, flocked together with me.
Just in time to leave.
Woohoo, fly away.
And on that note, we want to get you guys involved on this final episode. We are going to put up a poll on who you think out of those 4 finalists should take home the Dancing on Ice Trophy 2024. So head over to Spotify. The poll will be up there. And I'm looking forward to seeing these results.
Well, I mean, we have our predictions in the golden envelope. So let's see what the people at home are thinking and see if we're all on the same page.
Well, thank you, Frankie, for this evening.
Well, thank you for flying Frankie Airways. I'm not going to stop. So you may as well just cut the podcast because I'm just going to keep going.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening and for watching the Icebreakers podcast. Next week, it's the final.
I know, I'm so sad. It means it's our final podcast. Well, in its current shape and form.
It is the final.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited, not for it to finish, but I'm very excited to hopefully see some history made next week on Dancing on Ice. Fingers crossed that if anything happens. Oh, and we do the golden envelopes next week.
Dun, dun, dun.
And hopefully more confetti.
And I feel like after we finish our podcast next week, we should just hop on over to the rap party at Dancing on Ice.
Let's do it.
Gate crashers.
Let's do it.
We're not invited.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Remember, bonus episode is out on Fridays. Please follow us on the socials, and we might just put you in the podcast. See you later.
Bye.
Tweet, tweet. Produced by Be Inspired Media, the content and podcast agency.